Privyet! Меня zovut Wally. Welcome back to my channel. I am back again with another installment in my Robbed Goddesses ? Series. Only this time for me, the question mark isn't merely a formality, it's a necessity, and you will see why. The more research I do and the more codes of points I read, the more confusing and nebulous these results get. You think it would be the opposite. They say knowledge is power, but I don't think that is the case when it comes to gymnastics. So I'm not sure how interesting talking about the code of points is. I guess I'll find out when I see what my retention stats look like for this video. But the 1997 code of points was interesting. The gymnast had to obtain a full 1.0 in bonus, which they could do through additional D and E skills, because one D skill was required. In addition to additional D skills and E skills, there also was connection bonus. And on beam, there were 3 different types of connection bonus. There was direct acrobatic of 2 elements. There was direct acrobatic of 3 or more elements. And then there was connection bonus for either doing 2 gymnastic elements together or a gymnastic element combined with an acrobatic element, which is also called a mixed series. So each of those 3 types of connection bonus were worth different values depending on the letter of elements you would do. For example, a direct acrobatic series with 2 elements, say you did a B plus D or the reverse, excluding the mount or dismount, was worth 1/10 in bonus. But if you did D plus B or B plus D as a gymnastic series, then it was worth 2/10 bonus. As always, there were special requirements. This code had 7 of them, one of which was a flight series of 2 or more elements. However, a flight element did not necessarily have to be a somersault or skill without your hands. So technically a back handspring is considered a flight element, or a courbet. So as you can probably tell from the thumbnail, today we are talking about the balance beam final at the 1997 Worlds in Lausanne, Switzerland. This has been one of the most contested results since literally the day that it happened, over 25 years ago. I would say the vast majority of fans would insist that a robbery happened that day and that Yuanyuan was not given her flowers. So my first of possibly many hot takes this video is that I'm not really sure there is a robbed goddess here, and we are going to get into why. That is what this video is all about. So we're going to look at the routines of the medalists and weigh the pros and cons of each one against the 1997 code of points. I honestly feel like a case could be made for any of the 3 to have won the title. And the fact that all 3 of them were scored within the margin of one judge's dropped score illustrates that fact. So we are going to go in the order that they competed. Coincidentally, they were 3 of the first 4 gymnasts in the final, and Gina Gogean was the very first gymnast in the final. Okay, she mounts with a front tuck, and right there's a balance check. It's that wolf half into a wolf jump. It's punch front into a beat jump. She has good amplitude on all of her elements, good form, good extension, good flexibility on that switch leap and straddle jump combination. That hold, I don't think she really held long enough. But she has a nice presence on the beam. As you notice, she has not fulfilled her flight series yet, and that's because she does it as her dismount. Back handspring, step out, back handspring, tuck double back. Perfect landing. So I pretty much went through the pros as I was watching the routine. She fulfilled all the special requirements and got the full point and bonus. She has good form, good execution, good flexibility. She is a good, confident beam worker. I will give her that. So let's talk about the cons. This routine is probably one of the worst demonstrations of code whoring in a pejorative sense. So for some reason, unbeknownst to anybody, a wolf half was worth a D in this code. So her wolf half plus wolf jump combination was worth 3/10 total, 1/10 for the wolf half and then 2 for the combination. Again, I mentioned she was allowed to use her dismount series as her flight series. Out of all the things, this is what irritates me the most, because if she had just done a back handspring on the beam as a flight series, it wouldn't have been worth anything at all, right? It just would have been B plus B. It's not worth anything. But because she did it in connection with her dismount, which was a D, she gets an additional 2/10 bonus for that combination. So altogether, her dismount is worth another 3/10 in bonus. She does not perform any E elements, which shows the lack of risk in the exercise. Unlike the 1985 and 1989 codes that I love so much, the 1997 code did not require any originality. So, for example, in the 1989 code, gymnasts only had to obtain 4/10 in bonus to get to a 10.0 start value. That was fairly easy to accomplish. So when it came to separating the gymnasts, you really had to do extra originality and extra risky skills to stand out from everybody else and to get the high scores. By 1997, the WTC had decided to go in a more objective direction when it came to obtaining bonus, and this pretty much continued until the end of the 10.0. They kept increasing the amount of difficulty a gymnast would have to obtain in bonus during the routine. And it's continued on into the open-ended scoring system up until this very day, where your D value is so important. So from a 2023 eye, this routine looks pretty boring and kind of empty. There's nothing spectacular or flashy, and it's hard to even believe that it could start out of a 10.0. But if we're judging it with a 1997 eye, there is very little to take aside from the slight loss of balance on her mount. And again, I don't really think she held that back dive quarter turn handstand for very long, and that's another potential deduction. There are also places in the code to deduct up to 2/10 for insufficient dynamic performance and up to 3/10 for insufficient artistry of presentation/interpretation. And then there are deductions for compositional faults, which could be taken for a lack of progressive distribution of the elements, lack of diversified composition, elements or connections, and the insufficient use of the entire apparatus spatially and directionally. And up to 2/10 could be taken for each one of these criterion. And I always say that each judge is his or her individual arbiter on what they want to see and what they value. So if I'm judging this routine, I am going to try to find something to take for just the overall mundanity of this exercise, either via insufficient dynamics or lack of diversified composition. Gogean scored a 9.8, which I can totally see. I personally probably would have had it more in the 9.7 to 9.75 range. So now we're going to look at Svetlana Khorkina, or Svetlana as my old boss used to call her. So right off the bat, she performs her flight series as her mount. She does that Luconi mount through a layout step out. I feel like that is such a more creative way to utilize the coda points. Beautiful hold, beat jump, Kochikova, Corbett. She has a very lovely elegance on the beam. Of course, very tall, very lithe. Beautiful full turn. Just a little bit of hesitation there. But I don't think anything that I would deduct for. Switch leap, wolf jump, Rolfova. And we're going to get into that Rolfova. Love this little switch kick. I don't think it's like technically, I don't know what it's called, but I love it. And then her dismount, her trademark cartwheel gainer full off the side of the beam. J'adore Svetlana. One thing you notice from Khorkina's routine is that she does 3 or more elements in a lot of the passes, which I think limits potential deductions. I think it's very smart, and I think it's much more interesting compositionally. In event finals, a D or higher level dismount was required, and this dismount was rated a D. It might seem a little bit high, but considering a wolf half was also a D, it seems more than sensible to me. Like Gogean, she had just enough bonus to get to a 10-0 start value, and she also did not have any E elements. I think she did a very good job of minimizing balance checks. I didn't really see a single balance check throughout the entire exercise, and she pretty much stuck her dismount. I mean, I don't think I would have deducted for her dismount. So let's talk about the cons of Khorkina's routine. My main problem with this routine is the Rolfova. It lacks amplitude in addition to being cheated as she completes the twist on the beam, and that's not how the skill is supposed to be performed. We can take up to 2/10 for the incomplete turn as well as insufficient height. Her mount is also borderline. It is now written as a 3/4 turn on to the beam, but in 1997 it was written as a full turn on. Interesting aside, that mount is also now an E, so the WTC taketh and the WTC giveth away in regards to Svetlana's dismount and mount respectively. So you could possibly deduct for her mount being incomplete turn, although I probably wouldn't. Like I said, I love Khorkina's style of movement on beam. She's very regal, very queen-like, very elegant, gorgeous line, long lines. I probably would have this as a 9.8, as most of the judges did. Her final score was 9.787. So now we get to Yuanyuan. So she goes above and beyond in terms of difficulty right off the bat. Round off, layout, step out, right into that really beautiful pose. Switch leap into that staggering jump where she loses sight of the beam. And watch this. 2 back handsprings to a full twist. Layout full twist. Incredible. The only E element that we have seen thus far. And then here, 3 split leaps into back handspring, 2 layout step outs. And then just a little scale and a full turn, and just lovely variety of composition of skills. Wolf jump into Rolfova. That's how Rolfova is supposed to be performed. Again, I love her overall comportment, her posture, her carriage, toe point. Her form is lovely for the most part. Round off, tuck double back. Unfortunately, she had to take a hop forward. Ugh. So there was great variety in this exercise, although I saw a little bit of hesitation here and there, as I did with Khorkina. I think Ironically, Gogean probably worked with the most confidence, but that's also understandable considering she also had the easiest content. So the pros of Qui's routine, again, she goes above and beyond in terms of risk and difficulty. She's the only gymnast of these three to perform an E element and to have more difficulty than she needed. This routine actually has 1.1 in bonus if I calculated everything correctly. But now we have to look at the other side of the coin and the cons of this routine because there were deductions. There are 3 noticeable losses of balance. Each one is mandated at 0.5 of a point. I honestly probably would overlook the wobble on the layout full just because the difficulty on that skill is so great that it almost mitigates it. But there is also a loss of balance after her second series, after the second layout step out. And then again on the dismount, she takes a hop forward. Another thing to look at is there is a lack of height on her layout step outs. Again, that's up to 2/10 deduction on each one. There was a slight leg separation on her layout full, which we can take up to 0.15 for. Another small thing I noticed is that she does not land her wolf jump with both her feet at the same time. I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure that it's something to deduct for, but it's just something that I noticed, and I don't know why she does it like that. A stylization thing? I don't know, honestly. I'm not even sure it's a mistake, but it kind of seems like one. So long story short, there were clearly more than enough deductions to where you can see how she got down to counting 3 9/8 and a 9/75, the same as Svetlana Khorkina. The main thing that makes it hard is if I'm judging, I want to give this routine the benefit of the doubt more so than the other two because she really went above and beyond. But I think what hurts the most is that she did not stick the dismount. That is the last thing the judge sees. It really puts an exclamation point on the routine. It's like a stamp of approval, right? It's the last impression ingrained in the judges' minds, and it makes them, I think, less lenient to possibly forgive some of the other errors in the routine that we talked about.
She needs to stick the dismount.
I personally think had she stuck the dismount, she would have won this final, no question. But as she didn't, I completely understand her score. That's why I asked, is there a robbed goddess here? And if there is it Yuanyuan? So I would have ranked this final Khorkina first, Qui second, and Gogean third. But as I said before, I absolutely understand Gogean's score and I understand why she won. And I would have found it understandable if any of the three had won. Before I read the code, I definitely had this as one of Gina's more questionable medals and or titles. But after having read the code, it doesn't seem quite as egregious as some of her other medals. Namely, and especially, any medal she ever won with her not Phelps vault.
Ideally, the gymnast really wants to get a little more push off the horse so they can stay in a laid out position, twist earlier, and go into a layout front.
I personally find it far more obnoxious that she won the floor title here over Khorkina, although that is probably more due to the idiotic tiebreaker procedure that they decided to implement. So even though they have the same score on floor, Gogean got the gold and Sveta was, downgraded to silver for no good reason. And in fact, that is the exact same thing that happened to Qui in this beam final. Even though she and Khorkina had the same score of 9.787, Qui was knocked down to the bronze medal. Make it make sense. So that was a lot. I hope you enjoyed this overly thorough recap of the 97 Worlds Beam Final. I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you guys in my next one. Do skorva. Take care. Bye, loves.